Okay guys, this is Chad from Stick's blog. I'm Stick, and today I just wanted to do a quick little video on the Hexamid Solo Plus tent I got from ZPacks. I know a couple of people has been asking about another review since I've actually used it in the field, and I haven't provided another review. I've talked about it in comments on other various posts and sites and stuff, but I just wanted to kind of real quick talk about a few things about it, just kind of tell you some of my thoughts about it so far. First off, setup is really easy. I'm really happy with it, and if you're looking at all these guidelines, you're probably thinking, how in the world is he happy with the setup? That looks like it takes forever to set up. Well, the fact of the matter is it doesn't. If you'll notice right here where the little ZPacks patch is on the tent, this is always the edge that I start with first. I always guide that guy line right there. I guy it out, and then immediately I come over to the other side and I take this other corner and I pull it tight so that it's tight all the way across the front. Now Joe recommends once you pull it tight, pull the stake in about 8 inches so that it allows enough room, sag, so that the trekking pole can be put in there and it's the appropriate height off the ground. So what I've done, now I know you probably can't see it, but right there, there's a black spot. What I did is one day I came out here and I just took a black marker and I pulled it and I measured 8 inches and I marked it on there. So now what I do is I pull this thing and then I put my stake in the edge of it, I pull it out and I hold the spot where it is on the ground and I just pull the stake up and I put the stake in the ground there. So far it's worked perfect every time. I've had no troubles with it. Now the next part that Joe recommends is staking out the front, but I do something just a little bit different. What I do is I come to the very back and I grab the center, that one right there, and I just kind of loosely stake it. I go ahead and stake it in the ground. I don't pull it tight or anything like that. There's lots of slack in it when I stake it in the ground. But the reason I do that is because whenever I put the trekking pole in and I try to, I put the trekking pole in and I pull out this front guy line, if that back one's not staked down, a lot of times my trekking pole and the tent will kind of flop over. So I found that if I go ahead and stake out that back one first, just loosely, it'll give me enough tension so I can stand it up. And actually so far each time I've never really had to adjust it as far as being tight. Sometimes it might be a little to the right or a little to the left and I'll have to adjust it, put it back in line. But anyway, so I've got those pitched out, and then once I stake those out, I just simply come and I guy out the other two corners, this corner here and the corner there, and then I just start with the pullouts. There's 4 pullouts. Also, if you'll notice here, these are not real tight. One reason is because I still don't know how much stress that I can put on this Cuban fiber. This is 0.51 ounce per square yard Cuban fiber, so I don't know how much stress I can put on it. But what's really cool about this is not seal nylon. This will not stretch. So as long as it's taut, as long as it's got a little bit of tension to it to kind of hold it where it is, it's good. It's not going nowhere. So I don't have to put a whole lot of tension on it and expect to come back out here and have to re-tension it again. This tent, I pitched it last night. It's been up for about, let's see, it's been up for about 16 hours now, and I haven't had to re-tension it at all. And it's still really good. I have no issues with it at all. So but anyway, so like I said, one of the last things that I do after I get all of the guy lines staked out, I'll take these front ones, and usually when I get done staking all of them out, these front ones here are actually coming straight off. So what I'll do is, the last thing I'll do is I'll pull those stakes up and then I'll pull them out a little bit so that they're actually in line, and that'll help actually tighten up this little edge here. And so far it's worked really well. The way the beak works, there's this this little shock cord here, It's attached with a mitten hook down at the bottom around the loop on the cord, and then it's got another mitten hook up here, and it's got a little cord lock, and you just adjust that cord lock to put enough tension on the beak to pull it tight. Now typically what I'd done before this is I would always leave it separate like that, but what I found is I get a little bit of sag. You can see there's a little bit of sag in it. Now it doesn't help it just a ton, but I found that if I'll clip it to the, it's hard to do it with one hand in the rain holding an umbrella, but anyway, I clip it up there and it kind of pulls it out just a little bit more and gives me a little bit more space up under here, and it keeps it from sagging. Okay, now one of the first things I did when I got this tent was seam seal it. Now when I seam seal it, I seam sealed that seam right there. I seam sealed this seam all the way up at the beak, and I seam sealed that. Of course, I seam sealed right here where this big patch is, and then I seam sealed it all the way up to the top, and I seam sealed it around the top too. You can see that there. Also, I seam sealed this this long seam here going all the way up. I also seam sealed around the tie outs that were midway up on the tent. There's 4 of them, and that's all I seam sealed. I didn't seam seal down here around these corners where these pullouts are, and there's a reason I'm mentioning that. What I found is that initially I was thinking these tie outs are all the way on the edge, so it's not going to matter, because if you'll look, my ground sheet does not go up to the edge of the tent. It actually stops a couple inches, about 6 to 8 inches, just depending on how you got the ground sheet arranged in there. But anyway, what happens is I was thinking that it doesn't matter if water drips through here and goes inside, because it's just going to hit this mesh up underneath it and it's going to fall on the ground underneath it, and it does. But what I found out is that on the inside, I'll show you that in a little bit, but on the inside, the seam here also has a little loop attached to it, and that loop is what you attach the ground sheet to pull the ground sheet out at the corners. Now what happens is water seeps through this part here, and as it seeps through there, it soaks that loop that's on the other side, and when the water soaks that loop, the water will actually run down the shock cord and it'll actually drip off right at the ground sheet. So it doesn't bring the water onto the ground sheet with me, it keeps the water away from me, but it does bring water closer than what I'd like. Okay, now I'm inside the tent. Real quick, I wanted to show you, I was talking about how the seals, or how the tie outs, I didn't seam seal on the outside, and how they would bring water inside. You can see that, you probably can't see real well, but that's the loop on the inside that's right outside the where it's sewn on the outside, and then this is the shock cord that attaches the ground sheet. Now what's happening is as water comes in, it's soaking this loop here, and then the water is running down this shock cord to right here. And you see there's a little bit of water there. Now it's dripping, all the water is dripping off right here where it hits this cord lock, and it falls down onto the mesh. I don't know how well you can see that. And it's okay, it doesn't come onto the ground sheet or anything like that, because this plastic here, it creates a drip point. But in my opinion, that's a little bit closer than I would like. So once I get this thing taken down and dried off, I'm going to correct all this on all the corners. Now you can see how the mesh kind of protects me from the inside. The water, of course, comes off the tent, and most of it, depending on how hard it's raining, it will actually go right on off onto the ground, but some of it, as it drips off, it'll get in this mesh here, and you can see this is water from the mesh, and it's like that all around 3 of the 4 corners. Of course, it's the ones opposite the beak. Of course, it's not going to do that at the beak because the beak covers the mesh and it's not a problem. It's just at the other corners. Now I don't find that to be a problem, and I believe that's the way Joe designed it to work. I have no issues with this so far. As you can see, there's water on the mesh inside, but it only goes so far, and even if it came closer, my ground sheet is going to be covering that. So that's not going to be an issue in my opinion. So this is the inside. Like I said, these here are the tie outs that I did seam seal. I noticed the one right here at the head, when I got in a little bit earlier, there was about 2 drops of water down on the ground sheet, so I'm gonna have to hit that again. And I've also noticed that along this seam here, this major seam, I've obviously missed some more places seam sealing. Now I want to talk just a little bit about that for a second. And I want to start it off by saying I hate seam sealing. I don't like it. I wish that I would have thought about asking Joe if he could tape the tent for me after he sewed it before I even got it. I think that 2 things would have happened with tape. I think first off, it might have been lighter than the amount of seam seal that I added to the tent. And then secondly, I think that I would feel more comfortable, I would feel more secure about using it in the rain, because, you know, with seam seal, I've seam sealed 2 tents now, and you know, you have to seam seal it, you have to set it up and hope that you didn't miss any spots. And if you did miss a spot, you've got to find out where it is. And I mean, it's a big ordeal that I'm not happy going with anymore. I'm not pleased with it. I had to put, you know, I had to do it about 3 times with my Skyscape Trekker, and there were still a couple of places, 1 or 2 places, that I felt like wasn't completely adequate. And I did find some places, I don't know how well you can see it, but there's water here, and that's all coming from this main seal here, so I'm not happy with it. So what I'm gonna have to do now is I'm gonna have to order some tape from Joe and some more Cuban fiber from Joe, and I'm gonna have to tape this thing. So what's that gonna do for this tent? First off, it will make it more waterproof and hopefully completely waterproof. But now that I've seam sealed it, I'm gonna have seam seal plus tape added to it, so it's just gonna be more weight than I had to have had. So it's my recommendation, if you don't like seam sealing, at least ask Joe if he could tape it for you. It doesn't hurt to ask. He might not do it, I'm not saying he will, but that's my opinion. If I were to do it over again, I would completely go with the same shelter, but I would ask Joe about taping it for me. I'm sure that would add some money also to the overall cost. And in case you're wondering, for the ground sheet and the tent, I've got pretty much $500 in it, so it's not a cheap option. So I just want to throw that out there. One other thing that I want to point out, this is the material that is supposed to be used for the trekking pole to sit on. But what I found is if I set the tip of my trekking pole on this material, that there's not enough room between even the very edge of this material and the top of the zipper so that I can zip this. Because what's doing is putting an extreme amount of stress up here if I were to actually set the trekking pole on there. I don't know, maybe I could lower the trekking pole a little bit. I don't think so, because I think this is about the appropriate amount of height off the ground that I'm supposed to have around the perimeter of the tent. So what I've been doing is I just cut a little piece of a little square off of my closed cell foam, one of my cheap closed cell foam pads, and I'm using that with a trekking pole tip protector, and that's what I'm using on the ground. So I want to say that it's been raining now for I don't know, probably 4 hours at least, 5 hours, and the ground here, I mean, it's almost dry. It's pretty amazing. So which I'm in my front yard, it's nothing big, but anyway, I know a lot of people's asked me for some more thoughts, review type thing on the shelter, so I just wanted to give those real quick. And maybe once I get this thing taped up and stuff and use it a little more, I'll be able to provide some better insight on certain things. Right now though, overall I'm still super excited about this tent. I mean, for the weight, 17.7 ounces with everything, stakes, stuff sacks, guy lines, everything, ground sheet. I mean, I just don't think that I don't feel like I could beat it. It's easy to set up, it's roomy inside, and I mean, it provides protection that I need. It ventilates well, so I'm not really worried about a lot of moisture on the interior surface of the tent, and I'm just really happy with it. You know, I can lay down, I can see stuff, I can actually see the stars through the canopy, and I love that. I just really love it. I'm really happy with it, and I would highly recommend it. But you know, I just wanted to throw some of these things out there. So anyway, till next time, we'll see you later. Thanks for watching.